4. Jiraiya was right. This fight did hurt. In fact, the last time he was this badly beaten in a one-sided fight, Tsunade had caught him peeping on her in the hot springs. If he didn't get medical attention fast, Jiraiya was certain death would descend upon him. Pa and Ma were bested and sent back to the mountain where they would no doubt report this incident to Naruto, if not Tsunade. Man, was she going to be pissed off at him. Damn. And here I was hoping to fix things and set Naruto on the path I wanted for him by proving my superior strength. Oh well, maybe my death will be just as effective since the brat does appreciate those who act as martyrs for a cause, thought Jiraiya while he let a small chuckle leave his mouth. You shouldn't laugh, Jiraiya. I have won. You have lost. The time has come for you to die, said Pine while a chakra rod was in his hand and ready to stab the Sannin. Only for a sudden orange flash manifest itself and Naruto was there glaring down at the toad Sannin. I figured as much. Look at what he did to you. It's bad enough you fled when those two kunoichi from that kunoichi-only village came regarding your promise. But you had the never to run after Tsunade tried to beat some sense into your perverted ass. She told you not to come here and do this. You practically committed treason for disobeying her. And for what? To make sure the prophecy stay focused on me and not on him, said Naruto angrily before he glared up at Pine. Kyuubi Jinchuriki. You made a fatal error in coming here of all places. And to save him no less, said Pine while Naruto snarled. I didn't come here to save his dumbass out of the goodness of my heart. I came to bring arrow dumb shit back to Konoha so Tsunade could heal him up just so she can beat him bloody all over again. Pa and Ma only came here when summoned by the Baka so they could put a Hiraishin tag on him so I could interfere shortly after they got knocked off his dumbass. Good thing too since not even Tsunade can repair the loss of his arm if left off for too long. Still, with all the groping he did on women, whether consensual or not, it seems fitting he lose at least one of them. Explained Naruto before he kicked Jiraiya in his already broken ribs for good measure. No respect, whispered Jiraiya while Naruto glared at him. Considering you tried to grope my mother when she was slightly drunk one night and thought you could get away with it, you should have lost your raisin-sized balls years ago. Just another reason for me to fight and beat the living shit out of you, exclaimed Naruto before he picked up the Sannin by the back of his coat. You will not be leaving here with him. He knows too much. As do you, said Pine while his 3 remaining 6 paths to Pine surrounded them. And you think you do? Itachi was Jiraiya's spy. He told this idiot everything and passed it along to the Sandaime. After the old shit monkey died, it went to the Gondaime. Not only that, but I have it on good authority that you aren't the true leader of the Akatsuki. Just the puppet. Ironic considering you command quite a few of them around us, said Naruto with Pine showing emotions on his paths with each one scowling. I am a god. My eyes are that of one. You will fall to me, said Pine while Naruto just scoffed. Like I haven't heard that one before today. Also, the masked idiot calling himself Uchiha Madara, he's not the real deal. Just an Uchiha for a student using his name. If he were the real Uchiha Madara, the fool would wear the armor of the man, and not act like a total idiot in front of others from the start. Said Naruto while Pine narrowed his eyes at this and so did Konan. Why tell me this? To divide us, asked Pine while Naruto shook his head. No. So you are aware of him lying to you. So you can be ready for when he betrays you for the real plan for having all the bijou. Or did you really think he would be honest with you regarding the purpose of the giant statue several rooms away? Asked Naruto since the toads had been to aim earlier to scout ahead and saw the statue itself before Jiraiya was even ready to come here. Are you saying it's not a weapon of ultimate power? Asked Konan with Naruto smirking since he had the toads do some serious investigation work and using shadow clonus to spread out through the elemental countries to dig through all dusty libraries. Kurama also helped fill in some blanks too. It took some serious leaps of faith from the fox to disclose things, but it was worth it. I didn't say that. It is a weapon of sorts. A living weapon. Dating back to when the sage was still alive. One that some people think they can control if they have a certain dojutsu in their possession. Ask your fake Madara about it. Ask about the story of Kyuubi and how it was defeated by the sage. See what his reaction to hearing it is and see for yourself if I was telling the truth. Hopefully, you two can put the pieces together in relation to that ugly-ass statue and the 9 bijou being needed for it, said Naruto while Pine looked at Konan, who was frowning further. And you wish for us to let you go with Jiraiya as compensation for this information, surmised Konan with Naruto shrugging before the blonde picked up the arm Jiraiya had lost during the fighting. Perhaps. As I mentioned earlier, I have a personal score to settle with Jiraiya regarding his past slights against me. You already got your 10 pounds of flesh off of his perverted ass. Now it's my turn. Think about what I said. And don't worry about Kisame. I killed him 2 days ago before he even made it to Iwa and returned Samehada to Kiri and the new Mizukage, said Naruto while Pine and Konan were both shocked by this. Huh? Asked Pine while tempted to use a chakra rod to stab Naruto and force him into submission. Simple. Take away his chakra-eating sword and the man runs out of chakra fast without gaining any back at a later time. That sword feeds him chakra because his own body can't sustain any reserves for long due to a genetic defect his body possesses. Naturally, the man did have chakra, but he can't increase his reserves through training, and what he uses does not come back. It was one of the main reasons he could use Samehada's ability to eat chakra in the first place and why he liked to fight. Absorbing all that chakra through the sword and no one realizing that the man was a walking chakra-eating factory like his sword. But, if you take away the ability to use it, and go on a full-out fight with someone like me, you lose in the long run, said Naruto while Pine didn't look happy with that piece of information. Kisame was considered a bijou without a tail due to his massive chakra reserves, but no one had suspected he only obtained such reserves through Samehada. Most assumed the sword took the majority of the chakra eaten off of people and gradually channeled some of it into him. No one assumed the man needed the sword just as much as the sword had a need for Kisame. The shark man basically threw himself into fights knowing his enemies would generate chakra his sword could devour and send to himself to keep his reserves up. Kisame's death wasn't expected, but was no real loss to us either. In times of peace like what I wish to accomplish, people like him fade from existence, or lose all purpose in life. No doubt Kisame preferred the idea of going down fighting and did just that against the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, thought Pine, as he watched Naruto readjust Jiraiya onto his back. I'll see you soon. Also, I wouldn't be surprised if the plant man with your fake Madara was in on the original scheme they kept from you. If you do use your Uzumaki sensory abilities like I have, you will know what I am talking about, cousin, said Naruto while seeing Pine and Konan look at him in surprise. And in a flash, the young blonde-haired Uzumaki was gone. Do you think he was telling us the truth? Asked Konan with Pine narrowing his eyes further in thought. I do not know. But I have a way of finding out. First, I need to replace my lost paths. Once they are replaced, we will get our answers, said Pine while wanting to know the real plan the supposed Madara was keeping from him. Konoha Hospital sometime later. You are a baka. Do you know that? Do you have any idea just how stupid you are for pulling a stunt like that? Going to aim without my permission. For defying me. Do you know just how much I want to beat you within an inch of your life? Demanded Tsunade angrily at the person in the hospital bed, in a fully body cast, and was at an angle where injured person could not look away. Tsunade-sama, given his condition I don't think. Said Shizune, but was silenced by a glare. Do not pity him Shizune. Jiraiya deserved his near-death experience. He's lucky I was even able to save and reattach his arm. With enough physical therapy, he just might get it to work properly. Though personally, I wish Naruto had just left it to rot so he would have one less hand to molest innocent women with, said Tsunade while she continued to glare at Jiraiya with all her anger. You should have let me die, mumbled Jiraiya while Tsunade's glare increased. I should have done a lot of things in my life Jiraiya. One of them should have been your castration for peeping on me in the hot springs instead of just beating you within an inch of your life. I also should have returned to Konoha sooner to help watch over my distant cousin from the Uzumaki clan. Again, a mistake on my part. Hell, I should have every single person our sensei allowed to hurt Naruto be put to the sword in a public execution. All while making the offspring of the soon-to-be executed watch. Exclaimed Tsunade, as she had been tempted to do so given her sensei and former teammate plotted against the boy since he was a baby into being their loyal weapon without the boy even realizing it. The only reason she didn't do such a thing was due to Naruto having no problems with venting his anger out on those who had wronged him in the past. No one in Konoha thought the boy would fight back when he came back from his training trip with Jiraiya. Many assumed the man would successfully mold Naruto into a subservient weapon they could abuse and command at a moment's notice. And as a result, they could sleep soundly at night in the belief their actions would bring down some measure of punishment upon them. It only further enforced their belief that any slight, harm, or abuse aimed at Naruto was the right decision. If it had been considered even remotely wrong, would they not be punished in some shape or form by the village's governing body? Sensei taught you better than to give into such thoughts and feelings, said Jiraiya while he winced in pain from shifting only slightly to the right. Sensei was a liar and a hypocrite. If he were here, I would have beat him within an inch of his life too. I don't care if he was stronger than either of us. The old man betrayed just about everything my grandfather believed in when founding Konoha. The fact you even support his decisions without hesitation on your part only infuriates me further, stated Tsunade further while she was so tempted to smash her fist into Jiraiya's face. The only reason Tsunade didn't was because it would have killed him. What about Naruto? His coming to save me put the brat's life at risk. I doubt you would have sanctioned that mission or assigned it to him, said Jiraiya while Tsunade smirked. Actually, I did sanction it. And yes, I did assign it to him. Naruto figured your stunt to reverse summon yourself back to the Toad Clan's mountain to heal was a mere detour to get to aim. He believed that when you made it to aim to face the leader of the Akatsuki, you would fight the man one-on-one in some attempt to make yourself a martyr. To pass down your stupid beliefs using your own death, if necessary, to leave a lasting imprint on Naruto's mind. Naruto believed you would use Sage Mode and contacted the Toads to tell them that when you did, they were to plant a Hiraishin marker on your back so he could save your ass after being defeated, said Tsunade while Jiraiya grimaced since his former student had outthought him. It was for his own good, Tsunade. The prophecy needed to happen. It has to be Naruto who completes it, not Nagato. Only one student may fulfill it, said Jiraiya with a look in his eyes that told Tsunade he was obsessed with the damn prophecy. Say for the sake of argument's sake that Naruto is this child of prophecy the elder Toad spoke of years ago. What happens when Naruto does fulfill it? Will he get the praise and recognition with it? The love he rightfully deserves not only from within Konoha after so many years of being hated, but with the rest of the Shinobi village? Or, perhaps a certain perverted idiot named Jiraiya Baka, and a poor excuse for Godfather goes on a loud and boastful propaganda campaign to claim it all for himself. To finally cast a large shadow over the world and all the other shinobi in it after being in the shadows of other great shinobi of the past. Questioned Tsunade while Jiraiya refused to look her in the eyes. I deserve the recognition, whispered Jiraiya with resentment while Tsunade scowled. So Naruto does all the hard work. Puts his life on the line. Nearly dies. And for what? Also you can eat it all up saying I trained him, ladies. Spread your legs for me, to every woman around you. He does everything while you mooch off his success and take the so-called fame and glory for yourself, like a leech, accused Tsunade while Jiraiya was now scowling behind his cast-covered face. I am his sensei, not to mention his godfather. I can do what I wish and how I wish in regards to him and his development, said Jiraiya with Tsunade looking more pissed off. Not anymore. Naruto has disowned you from your so-called rights as godfather. He did it shortly after he returned to Konoha from training with the Toads while you were off peeping on women at the hot springs. I stamped the order myself. I also made it clear in the brat's records how you failed him as a sensei with your past actions so no one can argue in your defense, said Tsunade while Jiraiya looked livid. You had no right, Tsunade, protested Jiraiya while Tsunade glared even harder. You forget, Jiraiya, I am an Uzumaki by blood on my grandmother's side. Not only that, but the Senju are cousins to the Uzumaki clan. I can trump your claim of guardianship on that alone since we are related by blood, countered Tsunade with Jiraiya snarling. Said the woman of blood relation who wasn't there for him for over a decade. Jiraiya shot back. Maybe it had something to do with both you and Sensei keeping things from me at the time. I asked Sensei about Kushina and the child after the Kyuubi attacked in a message. Do you know what he said in return? They are fine. Nothing to worry about. Keep on wandering and heal. It wasn't until I met Naruto that I thought Kushina had done a bad job of raising him, only to find that the boy wasn't raised by her at all, because she was dead. Something Sensei decided not to tell me. Something you conveniently decided not to say or mention after finding me in the bar. You had plenty of time to tell me things in secret, but chose to keep your mouth shut. We both know you did it for selfish reasons. You knew I was close to Kushina and knew if I found out about Naruto, I would have come back and gotten close to him. You and Sensei wanted him isolated and dependent on your shared presence, said Tsunade while Jiraiya glared back. That's not true, protested Jiraiya, but it was clear Tsunade didn't believe him. Don't bother denying it, Jiraiya. I read Sensei's journals. Every page, every verse, every chapter, every word written in his handwriting. Everything related to Naruto and how you two tried to screw him over, exclaimed Tsunade to the point of nearly shouting and saw Jiraiya's denial fade away to admittance almost instantly. It had to be done. Don't you get it, Tsunade? Naruto has to be balanced. Not too weak so he crush Konoha's enemies, but not too strong the brat will be able to turn on us without fear of losing. It had to be done, Jiraiya shot back. Bullshit. You didn't need to do what was done to him to make the boy loyal. Naruto's status as a Jinchuriki didn't have to be made known to the council by Sensei. He did that deliberately knowing it would set off the chain of events needed to make the village hate him. Also you could swoop in one way or another to provide him the only support you were willing to let Naruto have in life and force your beliefs down his throat. He has the right to choose Jiraiya. You had no right to force your beliefs on him, stated Tsunade while Jiraiya growled angrily. I have every right. I don't care what you say, Tsunade. I am the boy's godfather and still his legal guardian. I can do what I like in terms of dictating the brat's future. Do you know why? Because the boy is mine. Mine to mold. Mine to control. Mine to make sure the prophecy is fulfilled the way it was meant to be fulfilled. And if the end result allows me to mooch off that disrespectful shit and live a life of happiness at his expense until the day I die, then so be it. Exclaimed Jiraiya with a hint of madness in his voice and eyes. For years, Jiraiya had been in the shadow of everyone around him. Sensei, Orochimaru, Tsunade, Minato, Kushina, just to name a few. Even Itachi was getting up there in terms of his own infamy. Had Naruto not crushed him as the fight they had clearly showed or had been declared a missing nin, the Uchiha prodigy would have truly been one hell of a Hokage. But Jiraiya was tired of being in the shadows of others. His first book Tales of the Gutsy Ninja was a complete flop. His perverted books were loved, yet all the women hated the fact he peeped on them in order to get his inspiration, something which he felt should be considered an honor. He proved his greatness with his transparency jutsu and trusty spy network, but was openly ignored for Tsunade's own super strength and her top-notch medical skills. Orochimaru showed off his genius daily before it got all sick and twisted, which only inflated the snake Sanen's ego to keep holding the bar higher than Jiraiya could reach. Even after it got sick and twisted, people still revered the snake man's genius, and left Jiraiya in the dust. Funjutsu? Minato and Kushina had it down to the point where they surpassed him on the subject like it was a piece of cake. His transparency jutsu? Spy network? His Icha Icha Paradise series? Mere footnotes in history compared to some of the exploits of others in Konoha. Even some Jounin, who had died bravely in the last Shinobi War, were treated with more respect over himself. And all because they weren't perverts or super perverts like himself. He was tired of it. Where was his fame and glory casting shadow? Where was his army of people giving him respect? Where were the people who look at him with respect and fear? Where were the looks of envy, of desire by the women? The answer? They were focused on everyone else but him. So when the Toad Elder spoke his prophecy, Jiraiya decided to seize a rare and golden opportunity for himself. To take his prophecy and mold it into something Konoha could control, could manipulate, could ensure made them the top village among the Big Five for decades, not centuries to come. It was why he told his sensei about it. Together, they could set things in motion, put pieces on the board who would act accordingly to their actions, and the actions of those around them with just the right nudge. And Jiraiya would be the one to reap the glory behind it when the prophecy was finally fulfilled with everyone speaking his name with respect. He could and would boast on how it was through his training that Naruto was so strong. Not really a lie, but no one needed to know that particular part, and Jiraiya doubted the brat would say anything to the contrary when the time came. Especially given how good-natured the boy would have been once the Sannin gave him just enough mentoring to make the brat see things his way. No longer would a Kunoichi glare at him for his perverted ways or for peeping on them to write his wonderful novels. They would practically invite him into the female section just so they could sit next to the man and rub their bodies against his own. He would have so much female tail around him, it would be incredibly easy for Jiraiya to write 1,000 Icha Icha Paradise books. All the while basking in the glory of his greatness and truly be respected by every one of his peers. But the brat had chosen to be resistant to his method of training. His sensei had assured Jiraiya that the need to prove himself and getting stronger to obtain the approval of those from within Konoha was imprinted into the brat's brain. How all Jiraiya had to do was dangle a few jutsus in Naruto's face, put the gaki down with negative criticism, and make it seem like nothing the boy did was enough. By doing this, they could force the boy's drive to improve himself to focus on getting stronger for Konoha, to fight for Konoha when its enemies came knocking, never questioning, never thinking outside of doing what he was doing, unless the village benefited. The only reason Jiraiya and Hiruzen didn't do it to Kushina was because Mito was alive long enough to imprint the Uzumaki way into her. Added Minato's own good-natured self. Not having the strength to break her beliefs or way of thinking only made trying to control her next to impossible. Hiruzen and Jiraiya had to start fresh with a newborn babe without parents to influence the brat in order to make their various dreams a reality. The Kyuubi attack the night of Naruto's birth was very much unexpected, but the hidden opportunity was too good to pass up. A Jinchuriki babe, no parents, no friends, and no family to influence the boy made him a blank slate for them to write their intentions on. They just didn't believe the stubbornness of the Uzumaki clan and Kushina would pass on to Naruto despite the many attempts to stamp it out of him, both physically and mentally. By the end of his little rant, Jiraiya could only stare back at a silent and deadly serious Tsunade currently staring down at him with a look he couldn't quite understand. There was disgust, loathing, anger, definitely lots of that, and yet behind all of it was a plan to make him suffer. I see. Well, Jiraiya, I hope you feel your actions were worth it because now is the time to see what your actions have produced in the coming month, said Tsunade while Jiraiya frowned at her words. What do you mean? Asked Jiraiya with a hint of worry. Simple. I'm going to heal you. Every wound. Past and present. I'm going to use all my medical skills and knowledge to fix your broken perverted body, answered Tsunade while Jiraiya and Shizune looked confused. Not that I am complaining, but, why? Asked Jiraiya in confusion. Because I don't want you having an excuse for when Naruto fights you. So you can't complain when Naruto shows you what your stupidity has done. So Naruto can enjoy taking your fully restored body and breaking it into pieces before leaving it to rot. So I suggest you enjoy the feeling of your body being back to its prime state, Jiraiya, because after Naruto destroys it, I'm not healing you. I'm not saving you. Nor will Shizune. If you want medical aid after Naruto destroys you, I suggest you go seek a back alley doctor, said Tsunade while Jiraiya was shocked by this. You honestly think the brat can win against me when I'm at full strength? Asked Jiraiya with Tsunade giving him a cruel smirk. Of course I do. Have you seen the list of S-ranked ninjas killed recently? And in such a short time? When was the last time you took on so many S-ranked shinobi in such short amount of time and won? Not only that, but he saved your ungrateful ass from suddenly being killed by another tucked away former student within garage, said Tsunade with Jiraiya grit his teeth. You mentioned he used the Hiraishin to have us escape Pine. How did he do it? Asked Jiraiya while Tsunade smirked at him. He has access to his parents' home, remember? Minato was a genius in Funjutsu and so was Kushina. If there is one thing Naruto excels at besides shadow clonus, it is in using Funjutsu in a way that many would consider to be scary, said Tsunade while Jiraiya looked livid. What? No. He can't have it yet. The Sandaime decreed he couldn't until he was mature enough or was jounin with considerable experience. Exclaimed Jiraiya, knowing his old sensei had done this to make it nearly impossible for Naruto to have access to the vast knowledge left behind for him. He is mature enough. No thanks to you. As for his rank being a possible issue, I recently promoted him to jounin. The fact he killed quite a large number of notorious S-ranked nin tells me the brat has accomplished the requirement of getting experience. So you can take senseis and your stipulations regarding the boy and shove it. What's the matter, Baka? Are you now afraid the brat will actually fuck you up in your eventual fight? Countered Tsunade with Jiraiya growling. He's still immature. Throwing a tantrum on how I train him. Bitching about the Biju's chakra hurting him. As for him kicking my ass? Ha, never. Besides, you should be more worried about yourself. He might challenge you for the Hokage seat in a one-on-one fight. Do you really expect him to hold back if that happens? Asked Jiraiya while Tsunade just smirked at him. Fight him? Hardly. Within the next 2 or 3 years, I'll give the damn hat to him to run Konoha how he sees fit, said Tsunade while Jiraiya fumed inside at her doing this. You can't. There is a law in place. One sensei has locked in so Naruto could never have his dream fulfilled, said Jiraiya while Tsunade frowned. And what law is this? I know all the laws in Konoha. There is nothing in the books that says Naruto can't become Hokage, replied Tsunade while let out a small chuckle. Oh really? Check along the lines of requirements. Sensei always had contingencies in place for almost anything. So in the chance Naruto did get nominated to be Hokage, a law was put in place to deny him due to his Jinchuriki status, said Jiraiya while Tsunade was furious about this law. When did this happen? Demanded Tsunade, knowing it could be repealed if the daimyo signed off on it. Shortly after the Gondame Mizukage and Jinchuriki Yagura started his bloodline civil war within Kiri. Sensei used it as an excuse to create a law banning any Jinchuriki in the village from being Hokage. He said, "We can't afford Konoha to have future Hokage who is like the Gondame Mizukage and one too strong to stop or rebel against with the clan heads and elders supporting the decision. So you see now Tsunade? The dumb brat can't be Hokage. His dream was always meant to be just that. A dream. A hopeless dream he could never accomplish. An impossible task," said Jiraiya while Tsunade seethed for a moment. "I can repeal the law, Jiraiya. The elders and Danzo are dead." Hamura had his throat slit and Kaharu was found with the woman's body hanged using her own intestinal tract. All within their own home. The clan heads won't deny Naruto or his dream. He's more than earned it. Sensei played off their fears. "I will change their minds through Naruto's deeds," said Tsunade with Jiraiya glaring at her. "You honestly think Sensei didn't think everything through? That there was a chance the next Hokage after him would take this to the daimyo? This action was supported by the fire daimyo himself. You want the law repealed? You have to go right through him and I doubt he will do it. Hiruzen has told him enough about Jinchuriki in general to make the man believe they are too dangerous to be put in a high position of power. The Gondame Mizukage only reinforced this, and despite Sabaku no Gara being Kazekage, we both know the fire daimyo thinks that the wind daimyo is an idiot. Naruto's dream of being Hokage is just that. A dream," exclaimed Jiraiya since he did not believe the fire daimyo could be convinced to help change that law. "We'll see about that, Baka. I still have a trick or two up my sleeve when necessary to deal with Daimius. Plus, Naruto's Shinobi record shows he is far from what the Gondame Mizukage ever was when ruling Kiri. All I have to do is show him how our sensei was pour lies into his ears, and the foolishness of supporting those lies will be for him in the future if Naruto is denied becoming Hokage," said Tsunade while Jiraiya just growled at her. "As if the fire daimyo will believe you. Sensei was a well-respected shinobi and Hokage during his time," countered Jiraiya while Tsunade smirked. "And I have enough evidence and dirt to throw on said respected time to make the fire daimyo realize he was being played like a fool by said man," Tsunade shot back. "You would do that to our sensei? Where is your loyalty?" demanded Jiraiya while Tsunade scowled. "My loyalty is to my family, my cousin. Both of which you, Danzo, the elders, sensei, and the rest of the village have betrayed multiple times over. Do not speak to me about betrayal, Jiraiya. I am not going to just sit by and let people run my family's legacy into the ground. Nor will I allow those betrayals to stand and to set a cruel precedent letting people believe such things are allowed. Besides, why should I be loyal to Sensei after all of his betrayals to my family and Naruto? Would you?" exclaimed Tsunade while she saw Jiraiya narrow his eyes behind his cast. "He was our sensei. He deserved our loyalty. You and Orochimaru spat on it. I am the only one truly deserving to be called his student," spat Jiraiya while Tsunade scoffed. "Oh yes. Such a remarkable title. And what has your loyalty to the man gotten you for siding with Sensei and his ridiculous plans? You being in a body cast and soon to be in another one after Naruto finishes breaking it into tiny brittle pieces," said Tsunade since her reasons for betraying the Sandame were pure and for good reason since the man had betrayed her first along with everyone associated with the Senju clan. Orochimaru simply did it out of pure spite because their sensei chose Minato to be the fourth Hokage over him. Not to mention all of the illegal experimentations done that resulted in the Sannin going rogue. "The brat can't and won't hurt me. He doesn't have the stomach for it. I'll beat him like I did a year and a half ago," commented Jiraiya in an arrogant tone. "Considering his tally of S-ranked missing nin he's killed." "I highly doubt it," remarked Tsunade since she knew the brat was itching for a fight with Jiraiya and training almost every damn day. The boy was becoming a regular juggernaut ready to run over anyone deemed his enemy and wasn't looking back. Kushina had been that way in many aspects. Caring, kind, and loving one moment. But piss her off? She was an evil red-haired demon from which there was no escape. She would run you over to get to her target if your mind, body, and even soul somehow managed to stand in her way. Kushina's power and skill as a kunoichi had been so great, the woman made battle-hardened war veterans weep, and piss themselves at the sound of her name. And now it seemed Naruto was showing himself to be the same way and being a force of unstoppable power capable of doing the same as his mother. Tsunade almost couldn't wait to see the Gaki smash Jiraiya to pieces, sometime later. Pine was not amused. Not in the slightest. He had approached Zetsu under the impression of a mission and had begun to specify the details of said mission when Conan struck. The paper woman was a master in using any and all things paper-related thanks to her skills honed over the years of training in warfare. As such, it was incredibly easy for Conan to send a paper with a seal on it to the back of the plant man's neck, and cutting off its ability to use chakra. Before either half of Zetsu could say anything about it once the seal was applied, Pine had grabbed his head, and ripped out the plant creature's soul, and got all of the creature's memories. Making Madara believe Zetsu's darker half was in fact the Uchiha's will implanted into it for manipulating events to one day bring down the Big Five Shinobi villages. To set all the events of the last 2 generations following the official death of Madara into motion. To one day weaken the Shinobi villages one by one to the point where it would be easy for Madara to win against them, even if they all rallied together to form an alliance to defeat the Uchiha. How Madara had secretly planned to come back from the dead using the Rinnegan and Tobi, who was in fact the thought-believed dead, Uchiha Bito to do it. Once brought back, restored, enhanced, and ultimate never capable of dying, the most powerful Uchiha in its history would crush the Big Five before betraying Obito at the last moment. Only for Madara himself to be betrayed by Zetsu and the real person who put their will into Zetsu, and it came in the form of woman, who was in fact the Sage of Six Paths' own mother, Otsutsuki Kaguya. Pine also got all the memories of Zetsu and the plan the rabbit goddess herself had given the plant man to use the 9 bijou to bring about the Kyuubi in order to bring about her way of peace. Which essentially involved using the moon, an infinite Tsukuyomi, and locked everyone into cocoon-like things forever. This could not be allowed to happen in his Rinnegan eyes. While Pine did want peace, he did not want it to happen this way. For it wasn't peace at all. It was genocide of the entire human race until all that was left was Kaguya herself. What do you want to do? Asked Conan while Pine looked at her. We do not need the others. They were mere agents to get us what we want. First, we remove Tobi from the equation. Once done, we will hunt the Jinchuriki ourselves from most power to weakest, said Pine while Conan frowned. Even if it means killing your cousin? Uzumaki Naruto? Asked Conan with Pine just nodding once. Uzumaki Naruto may be my cousin to some extent, Conan, but I won't let such a thing stop our dream of peace becoming a reality. It cannot be stopped simply because the Kyuubi Jinchuriki is part of something long since broken and scattered to the winds years ago. We will bring about our version of things, but without interference from outside forces seeking to manipulate us. Said Pine while Conan nodded, though she was unsure how they could do this without the other members of the Akatsuki and the rings outside of their own and Tobi. Shall I contact Tobi? Asked Conan while Pine nodded. Tell him I have an assignment for him. One only his unique talents can provide in moving the plan forward and back on track, said Pine, knowing he would need to draw the man in close. He might suspect something, said Conan while Pine looked completely calm. I'm sure he will be suspicious. But it is a risk we have to take, said Pine while knowing the masked Uchiha's ability to phase out for a short period of time and teleporting would need to be negated first. I hope you know what you are doing, Nagato, said Conan, knowing that for all of the masked man's display of stupidity in front of others, Tobi was far from stupid. So do I. Still, one should not underestimate him. We have done that for too long. In the event I should lose to him, I have one final assignment for you. One only you can carry out, said Pine while Conan nodded. I'll help any way I can, said Conan while Pine gave her a small barely noticeable smile on his path's face. I know you will, Conan. This is my command should the Uchiha defeat me, said Pine before he told her what was to happen afterwards should the Uchiha win, Konoha sometime later. You can still back down, Gaki. Admit I'm your better and we can stop this right now with your pride, somewhat left intact, said Jiraiya with a smirk. Why? So you can go around boasting and bragging about how you supposedly best me in combat while trying to swoon some whore in the red light district so she'll put her diseased mouth on your junk? No thanks. You already have enough STDs in your body to be labeled a biological weapon. We don't need you adding more to a possible mutation and outbreak, said Naruto while Jiraiya scowled at him. You sound like your mother, brat. If she had just kept out of my relationship with Minato when growing up, I could have made him into quite the ladies' man, commented Jiraiya with Naruto rolling his eyes. Yeah. I'm sure my mother would love the idea of marrying a womanizing adulterer with a small army of STDs running around in his system. Or the fact, if you had your way, I would have several dozen, if not 100 half-brothers, and half-sisters born from loveless sexual escapades. Said Naruto sarcastically while Jiraiya summoned Ma and Pa to get into his imperfect sage mode. Both had been informed of the match ahead of time, and while both would have preferred to fight for Naruto's and the winning side, they had to do their duty in fighting for their senior summoner on the contract. Not that it mattered. Pa and Ma knew their presence on Naruto would result in the boy being unable to use sage mode properly. Besides, they had seen firsthand his ability to get around the imperfection despite the difficulty of doing it thanks to Minato's seal holding a certain nine-tailed bijou within Naruto. There is nothing wrong with my way of doing things. Everyone else is wrong in judging me for how I do things, said Jiraiya while Naruto gave him a flat stare. That has got to be one of the most stupidest things I have heard come out of your mouth since I came back to Konoha. It is all the way up there with you ditching me for horse and you throwing me into a nearly endless ravine to access the fox's chakra, said Naruto with Jiraiya looking unapologetic for the act. Sink or swim, brat. It's the way of life. If you can't handle it, I suggest you drown quickly so others don't get dragged down by your dead weight, said Jiraiya with Naruto entering his version of Sage mode now. And unlike Jiraiya, it was perfect. The only thing about to be dead around here is you, said Naruto before getting into his toad fighting stance while Jiraiya did the same. Tough talk for a brat barely reaching puberty, said Jiraiya mockingly. Says the man who never achieved it after reaching his twilight years. The only thing you can do early is age and ejaculate into an unsatisfied woman, said Naruto while Jiraiya was seething at the insult to his male pride. I'm going to enjoy hurting you, said Jiraiya while his eyes narrowed. Says the man who was ducking me and going on a suicide mission to get out of our fight you had originally wanted from the start. Naruto shot back before he was gone in a mere second before his fist was barely caught by Jiraiya. The impact forced the man back several feet while still holding the fist. You call that fast? Your father could move faster and hit harder too, said Jiraiya while Naruto smirked before leaping away from the Sannin. I know. I was just taking it easy on you at first. Being old and frail at your age, I felt a sudden moment of pity and compassion for you. It's gone now, said Naruto mockingly before he got serious and moved even faster. Shit. Thought Jiraiya with wide eyes and suddenly felt a pain in his sides from an elbow blow to the ribs. Jiraiya stumbled and nearly fell over from the blow, but managed to stabilize himself. If just barely. Before he could even realize it, a kick hit Jiraiya in the face, followed by a knee to the spine, and finished up with an elbow to the chest. Each one causing incredible pain for the Sannin, and the impact from the ground further proved to Jiraiya his former apprentice was no longer holding back. You were always a fool and a loser, Jiraiya. You spent so much of your time focusing on the pleasures of the flesh. So much time wasted peeping on women, using others for your own personal gain, and trying to get people to see you as something outside of being the pre-verbal parasite. But people aren't as blind as you think, Jiraiya. They saw you for what you are in life, said Naruto while walking around Jiraiya like an animal stalking his prey with calculating eyes. And what does that say about you? People must see a demon when they look at you, right? Asked Jiraiya while slowly getting off the ground. I said they saw the truth when looking at you. With me? They're blind as a bat's, said Naruto with Jiraiya laughing and spitting out some blood in his mouth. Is that so? Nearly an entire village sees you as a demon, as a monster. They can't be all blind. Maybe they do see something about you that you can't see about yourself, asked Jiraiya while Naruto scoffed. And how exactly am I a demon? A monster? If it is simply for holding the Kyuubi, then they are just as stupid as they are blind. Just because I hold a bijou doesn't make me one of them. I am not some weapon or tool or pet you can command and expect to obey without question, replied Naruto before Jiraiya moved to hit him. Only for the Sannin strike to be blocked by Naruto, who countered by punching Jiraiya just as quickly. That's where you are wrong, brat. You are a weapon. A tool. That is what Jinchuriki are to their respective Shinobi villages. They fight and kill like good little attack dogs and are punished when they don't follow orders, said Jiraiya before he went on the attack and tried to land a decisive blow against Naruto. Keyword being tried. So my mother was one too? And Uzumaki Mito? Asked Naruto before dodging another arm strike and viciously broke Jiraiya's elbow, followed by kicking the man in the back 3 times before throwing him onto the ground. Of course they were tools. The only difference was neither one knew it and were too strong to remold into the image others wanted them to become such things. Despite her old age, Mito made sure Kushina wasn't turned when my sensei became Hokage. Even when she grew up to be a kunoichi, Kushina was untamable thanks to Mito's influence, and later with my student when they fell in love. Snarled Jiraiya while hating the concept of the word and how he felt it poisoned his student. What do you have against love? I thought you loved Tsunade. So why say the word like it was something foul? Asked Naruto while Jiraiya glared and charged at the younger man with the intent to kill. I don't love Tsunade. I love her body. The body she had when younger. The breasts, the ass, and the legs that show off her physical beauty. Ever since I first laid eyes on her in that hot springs, naked from head to toe, I loved the idea of being able to mount that fine piece of senju tail until my balls were drained. But she never gave me the time of day. She had eyes for that sissy boy Dan, and all because he believed in the same things she did. When my student fell in love with Kushina, but does he exploit her love she gave in return? Does he try to act like a real man and take charge of his home? Put his future wife in her place? Does he use his ever-growing reputation as a highly skilled jounin and soon-to-be Hokage to sleep with multiple women on the side? No. He stayed faithful to her. Because he was as in love. So yes, I hate the concept of love as you, Minato, and even Tsunade see it, said Jiraiya, who finally managed to land a punch on Naruto's face. Only to find it didn't do much. In fact, the younger man's face barely moved from the blow Jiraiya had delivered. Not only that, but unknown to the Sannin himself, Naruto allowed Jiraiya to hit him in order to gauge the man's overall strength. He wasn't impressed. Is this it? Is this all the strength you have? I was expecting you would at least move my body back a good 2 inches. But this? I didn't even feel it, commented Naruto before he batted away the fist of the stunned Sannin and kicked Jiraiya in the chest. That was my hardest punch. I put everything into that hit. How did you take it and not lose your head? Demanded Jiraiya while seething at his failed attempt to kill him in one blow had failed. Simple. I'm stronger than you. While you spent your days peeping on women, sleeping with whores, and drinking heavily at bars, I actually bust my ass to get to this level. Had you trained me properly like a true sensei would, you would have seen the writing on the wall. But like a fool, which everyone called you when growing up, you chose to be a lazy bastard. I was right when I said Orochimaru would have made a better sensei over you. Hell, maybe my father could have helped curb your former teammate's own lust for the darker powers, and notions of immortality, since Minato would have been his legacy to the world when dead. Alas, we will never know. Not that you would have allowed it. I get the feeling you would have killed my father out of spite for Orochimaru if that were to happen, said Naruto while Jiraiya spit out more blood and rubbed his chest. Of course I would have killed Minato. That boy was a genius. A prodigy. One season comes around once in 100 years. Whoever trained him would gain fame, glory, and the recognition for decades to come. Do you really think I would let such a thing like that be given to that pale-faced freak of nature? It was bad enough Sensei favored Orochimaru all those years ago, but I would have drawn the line at my student not being mine, said Jiraiya while the look of madness was in his eyes and Naruto narrowed at it. You sound as if the old monkey had planned on it after telling him of Minato's potential as a shinobi, said Naruto with Jiraiya's smirk increasing. Actually, he did just that. My former teammate was so well loved by Sensei at the time that any other choice for master and apprentice relationship was out of the question. I told him to hold off until after the boy was Chunin to make a decision on who would take the boy as an apprentice in the future. So I spent that time running a little smear campaign against Orochimaru using my spy network, falsifying various reports about my former teammate's actions. I had my spies spreading all sorts of lies about him, about his sexuality, his preferences, and even possible hints of his loyalty being put into question. By the time Minato became Chunin, I had convinced my sensei to have me take your father as an apprentice while Danzo offered to take Orochimaru into his root program, said Jiraiya while Naruto narrowed his eyes at him. I see. So because of you and your clearly inferior ego, if not insecurity, Orochimaru of the Sannin was sent into the arms of Shimura Danzo. Right into the hands of the emotion-hating warhawk who twisted your former teammate into the sadistic psychopath Konoha has, until recently, been shaking in fear over. And for what? Also the big whiny baby named Jiraiya could get his bottle, asked Naruto before landing a few punches and kicks to various parts of Jiraiya's body and making the man stumble. Minato was mine. The prophecy stated as much. Anyone I trained is mine to do with as I see fit. Don't you get it? The prophecy bringing about peace with me as the sensei of the child of prophecy is all that matters. My name will last throughout the ages as the very person who trained him. I will have my great legacy and my shadow stretch far and wide throughout the ages of time. Nothing will stop it. Do you hear me, brat? Nothing, exclaimed Jiraiya with the madness in his eyes and the last bit of sanity snapping like a rope being stretched to its limits. Actually there is someone who can stop it. Me, replied Naruto before he was upon Jiraiya and began to ruthlessly beat the man to a pulp. No jinjutsu. No jutsus of any kind. Just all out fists, arms, feet, and legs beating up the Sannin without mercy. Ma and Pa had long since left Jiraiya during his little rambling of a speech and decided to leave the fool to the beating he so rightfully deserved. Not that Jiraiya would sense them leaving. The man's imperfect sage mode was so imperfect, he wouldn't be able to sense it was gone until he did something that required the use of such a form. By the time Naruto had stopped beating the Sannin into the ground, the body was too broken to move, or even make a twitch of any kind. It wasn't surprising when it was over that Naruto had gone to such lengths to beat Jiraiya into oblivion. After all the things he had done, the actions he performed, which caused the actions of others to flourish and cause unimaginable pain to others around him, without remorse. Without any form of empathy toward the people he harmed as a result. And for what? Also, he can exploit the lives of women around him and use his so-called fame and glory to sleep with as many of them as possible, hence why Naruto poured all his hatred into those blows. All his pain, suffering, rage, and anger into each hit. Each blow designed to destroy Jiraiya physically, so when the man did regain his mental faculties, they would shortly be broken, knowing his former student had brought him low. That both had fought at their best and it was the student who came out on top. And without any form of excuse Jiraiya could try to conjure up in order to save face. Damn Gaki. And I thought I had beat him bloody when he peeped on me all those years ago in the hot springs. Commented Tsunade while she saw Jiraiya was in even worse shape since that moment in time so long ago. You already beat him within an inch of his life. The only way to top it was to beat him within a fraction of that. Not to mention he deserved it, said Naruto while knowing Jiraiya was just barely clinging to life and would soon die if Tsunade didn't stabilize in the next 2 seconds. Literally. True, but even still, I didn't think there was any way you, or anyone else for that matter, could top what I did. Of course, you are an Uzumaki on your mother's side. The clan was always said to do the impossible when others said it was impossible. Said Tsunade while she, very reluctantly, stabilized Jiraiya despite part of her whispering that the man should just be left there to rot and die. Especially after everything he just admitted to Naruto and her during this fight. What Jiraiya didn't know was that prior to his arrival to the training ground, Naruto had placed a very large and powerful seal around them. One which Tsunade activated after her old teammate arrived when his back to the woman. It was designed so everyone in it would be compelled to speak the truth about a subject, no matter what the topic. Naruto had wanted to know just how low Jiraiya had sunk so he could justify beating the idiot the way he had just done now. While Naruto had suspected Jiraiya was one of the lowest forms of life in existence, he didn't expect the Sannin to have fallen this low. To think, due the man's childish actions, spurred by some stupid prophecy, the fool had caused in his former teammate to join Root. As a result, Orochimaru became twisted by the man running it, which eventually caused the Sannin to go rogue for a various number of reasons. One of which was the Sandaime choosing Jiraiya's student and Naruto's future father as Hokage. Even worse, Orochimaru could have been Minato's sensei, which could have prevented the Sannin from becoming so twisted, and so obsessed with immortality to going down such a dark path. One that Naruto suspected Danzo had a hand in nurturing and the Sandaime Hokage himself encouraged down the road. If only to make sure his former student channeled his newfound interests for the betterment of Konoha as a whole. Heal him as best you can, Tsunade, but not too much. I don't want him being a shinobi anymore. He has no right to be one after the shit we just heard him say, said Naruto while Tsunade could only agree with him. In truth, Jiraiya's time as a shinobi was ending. The man had lost the respect of his peers, his fellow shinobi, and the next generation of Konoha itself. His spy network was messed up with internal problems, he was hated by Kunoichi in and out of Konoha, and the man had not been in an actual fight in years, so his skills were no doubt rusty. Even if Tsunade could fix all of the damaging injuries Naruto had just inflicted on Jiraiya, which was a big if at the moment, the perverted fool would never be worthy of being a Konoha shinobi ever again. It was best to just leave the man in a crippled and semi-vegetative state in the hospital where he could slowly wither away, and ultimately die. All the while trapped within his own body, unable to move, and realize just how big a fuck-up he truly was before the end came for him. That was the punishment Naruto wanted for Jiraiya. The punishment the man ultimately deserved for his actions. For his crimes. Because of him and his selfishness to make a possible prophecy come true, the world had been slowly thrown into chaos. Had the man just been responsible, actually took his own training, and the training of his own students seriously, things would have been different. Without question. But the man didn't act responsible in any shape or form. He didn't train seriously. He did not train any of his 3 students. His actions set things in motion for darker powers to make make their moves, and bring about pain and suffering to the world. So it was only natural that the man suffering such an end. To be alone. In the darkness of a room. No one to visit. No one to see. No one to speak to anyone about anything. Unable to move without feeling incredible pain. A true hell if there ever was one. And it was one Naruto believed Jiraiya deserved with all of his being. I hope you guys enjoyed. See you next video.